Are you waiting for me to do stuff? I will do it.
Huh?
If you
am I supposed to introduce? Hello. Welcome to Indifferently Depraved Book Club.
I just need to lean on you a little today, Carla.
That's okay.
I'm not at 100%.
I wish I had game show music to cue in.
Maybe a confetti balloon thing falls down now. We're showered in it.
Thank you for listening to our terrible show. I'm Carla Workman.
And I'm Penny Maple. And we're past our sweeps week. We're past our midterms. This is now episode 7.
Right. It was 6. We lost it.
He's back. But it's the first time for you, though.
I'm back for the first time.
Everybody, give a warm welcome to David Smith.
Hey, everybody.
So take your hands off your steering wheel and clap for David.
Yeah. How you doing? Put them back on.
Yeah.
Be safe.
And if you did that, then you should join our cult.
Yeah.
That's the theme of the day. Thanks to
Cults.
David. Cults.
I think that's the only real big development we need to touch on from the lost episode is we now live only to fulfill David's whims and wishes.
Oh, I thought he was joining our cult.
It's always got to be a dude.
Ugh, that's the worst. But yeah, cults is the theme of the day. David got to select our reading material. And the funny thing about David, he's not a horror fan, not a true crime fan. He's not into that shit. But he's been a listener from the start, which is super flattering to us. I always like it whenever my friends that I respect a lot as artists like my product as well. So I was like, fuck yeah. And he asked to be on the podcast, and I let him choose. I had to actually give you a selection.
Yeah.
Say,
well,
pick one of these.
I didn't want to pick one that was like, oh wow, you chose that one. You're really you're going for the intense stuff. But yeah, no, I mean, I love the show. I love just hearing you guys talk about something that you're interested in is really cool. But yeah, when this was on kind of the short list that you gave me, yeah, I mean, I've been interested in I guess spirituality and cults stemming off of that, so. Yeah, I don't really know that much about Charles Manson or anything, but from the description, I thought this sounded like an interesting one, and I really enjoyed the book a lot.
So the selection was The Girls, which is a fictionalized account of the Manson murders, but it doesn't really focus on the male cult figure. It's about the relationship between an adolescent girl and a slightly older adolescent girl who is very clearly Susan Atkins, the Susan Atkins character. And I love that. And I think that that's a perspective that maybe a lot of people haven't considered was really the relationship between the women. It's always, I mean, aren't women's relationships a lot of the times interpreted through how they interact with a central male figure in their life, But there's a lot more to it. What kind of relationships the Manson girls have. Yeah. And it was such a large family with different levels of involvement. I loved that aspect of it, reading about the characters that kind of come and go and how she just gets further and further into this obsessive romantic relationship with Susan Atkins.
I think there's usually or often there's a lot of stories in cults of women being kind of that conduit figure, they're shepherding over all the other ladies for the cult leader. I watched a show recently about NXIVM, and that chick from is it Smallville?
Yes,
she
Allison
was
Mack,
his little lackey.
And she my little brother Jacob was huge into Smallville, so I got into that when he was, and yeah, she was my favorite character on that. So that was
damn
weird.
Yeah. NXIVM's fucked up, and it is largely between these. It's sold as this girl power spiritual boot camp, women supporting women, and there's all these heiress women people that are heirs to these.
Yeah, he enforces it through the women, and I feel like Charles Manson was a lot the same way. And they have their own individual relationships, but also they're kind of his spies and in charge of carrying out his orders. Allison Mack, her initials were in the brand that they would all get.
It was his initials and hers viewable from different angles. One of the reviews that I read for the book, The Girls, he said that Charles Manson farmed women like pigs. When you're a sociopath and you don't see people as people, it's easy to farm them, just like approach it as you would livestock. I mentioned after we read this, I started listening to some other things about cults and the universality of it, how usually it's you approach someone who is on like a spiritual sort of journey, very obviously that's lacking that. But then there's also the children of God. They did the whole flirty fishing thing. So it was very much about using women, young, attractive women, and sexuality to entice people and get them involved and then convert them to the cult.
Yeah.
But all the things like sleep deprivation,
Yeah.
denying people protein in their diet apparently is one way to begin to prep someone for a brainwashing. I guess it's because then you just have sugars basically. So your blood sugar is constantly raising and crashing. It's fucking with your whole pancreatic function, your endocrine system, and your body is just in red alert at that point. You do it for 72 hours or so. And I guess that's like when you start to really break people down into the third day. Let's take it back to Charles Manson. Completely different, but still spiritually based. Just he was God, just like they all are. Really dirty, gross, hippie counterculture, which is so commodified now that it's a costume. You know, they have like 10 different hippie costumes at the Spirit Halloween store.
Right.
But they're monsters just like everything else at the Spirit Halloween store 50 years ago was terrifying to people.
Yeah.
And in a way that, you know, hippies and bikers now are just beloved characters and archetypes. But they used to be very, very terrifying to people. And this is part of the reason why.
A lot of hippies were criminals, stealing. Everybody was scared of them hitchhiking and robbing them and all that stuff. And then Charles Manson, of course, the extreme example of the murdering hippies.
And I think maybe a year or two after that, I think it's Jeffrey McDonald. He was a military doctor, I believe, and he lived on a base even. I can't remember if he was convicted of this, but it's very clear that he murdered his wife and like 3 or 4 kids. The evidence, they did a reconstruction of blood spatter, and the evidence shows that he just killed his whole family and then paced around and then read like a Time or Newsweek or whatever magazine article about the Manson murders and then made up the story about some witchy people showing up saying acid is groovy and killed his whole family. And like since he's a doctor, he cut himself up, but he knew how to make significant damage, but it wasn't really life-threatening. We see how it's absorbed as this, hippies are terrifying. I'll just tell a story about a bunch of fucking crazy-ass hippies, and I'll get off. And he almost did for a lot of reasons.
It's interesting because, you know, cult leaders obviously have control over the people's lives. That's the whole point of it for them. But a lot of times, and I know Nancy Bell mentioned this in another episode, it's always like a suicidal action is what cult leaders get people to do. And this is like he was sending people out to murder, which makes it an interesting twist. It's just a crazy, crazy guy. He didn't actually kill any of them.
That's his hallmark. To me, I'm like, there's no way Charles Manson never killed a person. And it's not like...
He didn't kill any of those people, though. The infamous...
No.
He didn't kill any of those people.
The Tate LaBianca murders, no, that is what he did.
He just got other people... Getting other people to do it for him is almost scarier.
It is scarier.
Yeah, definitely.
There was a murder that the family committed before that. I think, what was it? Bobby Beausoleil?
He's convicted of 2 other murders.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like the 7 from then, and then there's two other ones. The warm-up.
To take it back to what we were saying before, the book is about a teenage girl. She's, 14, 15?
14, I think, yeah.
Child of divorce.
Mm-hmm.
Her mother's rediscovering herself in the, spiritual movement and macrobiotics and yoga and I don't even know what. And she has a falling out with her best friend like everybody does when they're going through adolescence. And here she's just set up for this very lonely, empty summer of everybody abandoning her. And she sees Suzanne, the character Suzanne, and the other Russell girls. They're all dumpster diving.
Right.
And trying to shoplift. And this just makes her just fall in love. Well, she saw her prior to that. They saw her in the park. She saw the family in the park. And it's just set up just like, like a teenage coming of age, falling in love story, but it happens to be about sexy Sadie.
Right.
I think it's really relatable.
Yeah, I think so too. And like you mentioned before we start talking about this, it's like interesting to see how there was a lady figure who was just as captivating, if not more so, than Manson. Like everyone thinks, like you were saying, it's all about worshiping the dude. When really, in this case, and probably a lot of others, she was in it she just found this woman so fascinating and wanted to be like her and saw all these qualities in her that she wanted to be like. And that's another form of infatuation.
Yes, it's a girl crush and romantic crush. So a lot of the Manson girls, like the characters in this, they came from affluent or impoverished families, but they all had bad relationships with their parents. Like none of the households were perfect. Everyone always says that that's the thing about the Manson girls. They were girls from these nice homes and everything was perfect. It wasn't. Their families usually had substance abuse issues, divorce, broken homes. So there were there's a history of running away, a history of different petty infractions, and they have drug arrests and things like that, and they topless dance. And
you don't go from perfect life to living with a hippie who says he's Jesus in the desert. No. That's a rough transition.
There's something seriously
other steps involved,
very lacking in their lives that not just the Charles Manson Russell figure encompassed, but the other women. Those are the sisters, the mothers, that they never had good relationships, or that they missed because of relationships with other people that prevented them from having healthy relationships or even seeing their family. A lot more going on than the central male figure, and I appreciate the book for doing that. I liked the book. I did. I thought it was fun reading. I love the timing. We read it in the summer. The Manson stories, very much a summer story. In the end, another good point is that the Manson girls were what really kind of captivated the attention of the public. These girls with their shaved heads and X's carved in their foreheads, and some of them are pretty. Without them, it's just some jackass guy doing the same shit jackass guys do all the fucking time. It's not a story. Evie is just so infatuated with Suzanne. It's just all the gross details. Everything just seems really dank and rotting and mildewed, and everything smells like animals, and it's this gross farmhouse, and they're eating like half rotten food, and they're all just loving life because they're obsessed with Russell and dropping acid.
We build websites. We build websites. Real good websites.
Cucumber and Company will build, host, and update your site for one low monthly rate, dude. And I ain't just blowing smoke. In Beckley at 304-250-0123 or cucumberandcompany.com.
And we're back. I hope you enjoyed that commercial, whatever it was. I'm sure my husband, our producer, has a great commercial lined up for y'all. You can let us know at indifferentlydepraved@gmail.com. Do you have any requests? Would you like to join us and be a guest?
Yeah, we could use some more guests.
Yeah, hit us up on Insta.
David's never coming back.
Do you feel okay after you read that book about, all the weird, child sexual abuse shit and nastiness?
I liked the book, but I will say, yeah, that stuff was, it's not stuff I typically read about.
Because Evie, she does perform sexually for Russell.
Yeah.
And by his bidding, apparently by his design, she has a weird threesome with the Brian Wilson character.
Yeah.
And Suzanne, because she...
I think it's Dennis.
Oh, shit. Sorry.
Right, yeah. I want to besmirch Brian Wilson. He's coming to Huntington. I just found out. He's Brian Wilson, like the Beach Boys.
That's awesome.
Yeah, in November.
I've had an adult beverage or two, so just cut me some slack here.
No, I had to have a palate cleanser as I was reading it. I usually, I will read stuff while I'm eating breakfast. And I was like, I don't really want to read about a 14-year-old being coerced into her first sexual experience while I'm eating my oatmeal. So I got a book about fast food novelties that I could read. But the stuff the disturbing parts, they didn't really tend to last that long in the book. Once I would finally get to all right, we gotta get through this. Gotta read this, and it's like after about a few paragraphs, it's like, oh,
Page and a
okay.
half.
All right,
We're past
yeah.
it. I can see that being more disturbing from your perspective. It's still disturbing for me, but I'm just like, I was a teenage girl, so I sort of relate.
I think it's a bit watered down, though, like you kind of mentioned earlier. I think like these girls were probably getting like raped and impregnated and stuff by older dudes. So yeah, this is a little bit of the Manson girls light.
Sugarcoating, pulling punches, absolutely.
The Charles Manson young adult novel, The Manson Girls Club.
Twilight Charles Manson.
But it is good. I really liked it, and I will say too, like as a you were mentioning how it was relatable. Even as a guy, like that whole issue is about her wanting to be seen, you know. Like, and I think that's something that's relatable, can be relatable to everybody. Like I kind of related.
The author Emma Cline.
Yeah.
She had a long form essay. I think that was prior to this book being published, but it was about that theme of wanting to be seen. See me, you know, her own experience growing up. And she talks about she had a sort of pen pal relationship with this man that was, I don't know, tangentially related, I guess, to that sort of crowd. And it seems like he had a sort of sexual fascination for her, but it was he was still treating her in a superficially way that was appropriate. So he wasn't saying overtly sexual things. And she sort of frames the whole essay through this, and, you know, she's positing the question, what would have happened to me if the person that decided to take an interest in me had a different personality? Her desire to be seen and the feeble skills that you have as a teenage girl to interact with people who are much more sophisticated than you in a way that when you were a young person, and if you're at all not a moron, you know, when adults tell you that you're smart, you start to overestimate, what does that mean for me and my relationship to adults? Am I as smart as an adult? Absolutely, you can have an IQ that far exceeds that of an adult, but there's no substitute for just the fact of earning the age and having a different age and having experiences as well.
Yeah. But I don't know. That just makes me think of something we talked about last time we tried to do this, which was
Quit talking about it, David. People will forget.
Okay, sorry. Yeah.
We didn't have to re-record this episode. No. I'm going to edit all this out.
Yeah.
Oh, can I interject?
Sure.
I kind of wanted to talk about how it really fucking pulls punches with her best friend. Like, here's this B story or C story about, you know, her childhood best friend deciding to be friends with some bitchy other girl. And then you've gone through this fucking summer where you're having threesomes with pop stars, washed up pop stars, and living in a commune. And someone wants to get in your face at the fucking fair and throw a lukewarm orange soda in your face. And the stakes were so low with that. And I was like, why even bother with the C story if the stakes are that low? Because teenage girls are fucking bitches. There's no way. Like, that's the unbelievable part to me, is how...
Yeah, throwing a drink in your face is an adult move.
Yes. That is some fucking cocktail party white person shit.
It's true. I'll agree with that.
You know, there's no fucking way.
Yeah. She like told everybody she had chlamydia, told everybody about her blowing Dennis Wilson, beat her in the face with a rock, and then put nudes of her on Facebook.
Yeah. Vindictive, evil shit because you were a child and you have no experience, so you don't understand the implications and how that's going to I think a lot of things that we do when we're younger, we don't understand that does exist forever in time. You just got out of a period in your life where cartoons really, you took them seriously, like 5 years ago. So your frontal lobe is like halfway grown and you think you're somebody, but you're an asshole and you're a moron and you do fucking asshole shit. So, yeah, I took a little bit issue with that. I was kind of fine with her pulling punches because really getting fingered by Charles Manson and then having a threesome with Susan Atkins and Dennis Wilson, that's pretty bad. Okay, the stakes are high enough for me. I don't need to always be like a gorehound. But no, give me some teenage bitchery. Like, because you don't just stop being friends and your friend ignores you. They fucking torment you. Yeah. Because you're children. It's a first novel, and I think it's fantastic for a first novel.
Great. I didn't see until like this morning when I was like trying to look up information that she was 27 years old when she wrote this, which is like impressive, but also sort of like, what am I doing?
Oh no, David, don't do that.
David, you've made like so many films.
And you're a fucking hilarious actor.
This isn't just the cult member in us talking. It's a sincere compliment.
This is what made me join the cult.
Exactly.
So don't do that. And we
Okay.
all have our own roles to play. I think Raymond Chandler was almost 50 when he published The Big Sleep. Or am I thinking of Dashiell Hammett and the Maltese Falcon? Anyways, either way, one of those dudes was very much older when he started writing.
Okay.
Everybody comes to it in their own way. Some people write out the gate, young or old. And what's important is that you create. You just you do your thing and you just document it.
Yeah.
I think that's great. Emma Cline, yeah, she was very young. I think that she wrote that long form essay, and that's kind of what secured her book deal. I would read her books again.
Yeah.
I was surprised how much I liked it.
It's just a good novel too. Like
It
outside
is.
of like anything else, like I don't.
I think it accomplished the whole dual nature of being a story that's a thinly veiled Manson cult story, but also just a really heartrending love story at the
Yeah.
end when Suzanne comes to see her. She's opted. She's asked her parents. She's like, take me out of the situation. I don't give a shit about your divorce. I want to go to boarding school. Also, just to get the fuck away from all this shit, which is a very mature decision, and I
Right.
approve. So Suzanne, can you imagine you're like trying to restart your life at some stuffy boarding school, and sexy Sadie shows up and wants to like slink around your dorm room, and she's horrified, but she's also just like, I think it's a really successful book because I'm sitting there, I'm like, get in the van, go with them, run away to the desert.
I mean, this is obviously the most pivotal period in this woman's life. You know, like when we see in the framing device.
She's very arrested in the framing device.
Yeah. Like, you know, it does not take much for her to like just be transported right back there. And she talks about.
No,
I think,
she's
too,
never left. She's lived there.
Yeah.
Every minute of her life since.
Uh-huh.
And that's what I kind of mentioned before when we discussed the book before.
Yeah.
It's really telling that she never has a relationship with another woman. She talks about some kind of limp dick relationship she has with some guys, and it's just really obvious that she's going so through the motions, and she, you know, it takes the subtext really forward to the context, and she says, you know, basically that in a way Suzanne got to have the catharsis to finish the story, to actually do it, to commit these murders, and then confess to it and live publicly that way. And she seems to envy her in a way because she feels like a has-been never was, which
Yeah.
I think that's something that we talk about. You're talking about with your art. Like,
Right.
what did I do when I was 27? Fuck. It took me forever to graduate college, and then all I did was like work 3 shitty jobs to pay my fucking student loans. That's what I did when I was 27. It's a really, really sad. She never has any contact with Suzanne again
Yeah.
after she sees her there in her dorm room. And the wraparound story, she's sort of floating. She's crashing at someone's beach house, and their weird son who had a really privileged life but decided to be some kind of weird pedophile drug dealer with his underage girlfriend. And I guess that is what she's bouncing this whole story off of. But it's not because they just showed up. I think, like I said, she lives there every day,
Yeah.
and she never left. She's there with Suzanne and Russell on that weird, creepy, gross farm.
I like the book. I thought it was a little bit fluffy for me.
I agree that's a little fluffy.
It was a little bubble gum for me. But what I really did like about it is like the reaction. It's very easy to be like, I would never do that. I would never do that. How is somebody so stupid that they would do that? And I think it really examines like the peer pressure, the actually, you know, your friends get involved in this. And if you already have a pre-existing relationship with this person, it gives you like, you know, of course they're just going to be telling you something that's rational or something that would be good for you. So it really examines the psychology of the follower beyond like, oh, I would never do that. These people are all fucking idiots, and nobody who had half a brain would ever end up in a cult or end up in this situation.
Now, we're going to talk about this. I know we've talked about this before, Carla. No one's going to like this, but I think that basically all religions are cults.
Yeah.
And it's just, which cult do you belong to? Is it a really normally accepted one, or one that everyone's going to act like is completely fucking unreasonable, could never be true? And I'm just like, that's where everybody is failing. You believe this one absolutely fucking ridiculous story, and you interpret it in the fucking wackiest way you possibly fucking can to support a bunch of shit that I think is really fucked up. And then when somebody else does it and you're like, look at these crazy loons, and I'm like, The only difference is you have this cultural cachet where you are protected. Look at Scientology. That's something that is completely fucking whack as shit. I want a pin that says suppress a person so I can wear it everywhere. Where is Shelley Miscavige? No one's seen her for years. Anyways, so that's an example right there. And that grew and grew and grew. And it has all of this public support. And to another degree, Mormonism is another thing that's only, a couple hundred years old.
Yeah.
And that is it's a gigantic machine. But I can't talk. I'm fucking Catholic.
Yeah, it's true. It was just the 19th century. It hasn't been around that long.
I was raised Catholic. You see how deep the brainwashing is that I just said I'm Catholic? I'm not fucking Catholic. I'm an atheist.
People treat Catholicism like it's an ethnicity, though. It's true. Like, even people who never go to church are like, I'm a Catholic.
I'm a Catholic. Yeah, I haven't had confession
in your
for
DNA.
32 years. No, it's like the mob. Once you're in, you are in for life. You cannot get out. And the Catholics do the whole thing of like, we're the first religion. Everybody else just split off us. And I'm like, so we're all just like pissing on this rock, being like, I was here first. And that means that I'm right. And you look at the Vatican City, which has diplomatic immunity, and like no one can look at their fucking like their financial ledgers if they don't want them to. You know,
it's really funny to call yourself the first religion when you started 15,000 years after civilization.
I know we've joked a little bit about like we did this before or stuff, but I gotta mention it just because of this. I think I have a slightly different thought on religion than I had even like a month ago. Like I'm sort of like ending this brief flirtation I had with like Buddhism and stuff, which I still think, even though I feel like I'm sort of like at the end of it, I still feel like that's the one, at least for me, that has like I'm the closest to be able to getting on board with.
That's because you're an atheist, and the Buddhism does a thing where it's like you can be Buddhist and non-theistic, and we're like, yeah, I can do that.
But
yes,
even with the Buddhist
it's like
thing,
atheism light.
I was like, I'm coming back from like, I just went home for a little bit because a close friend of mine had passed away. It was his funeral, and I'm like coming back thinking like a lot of Buddhism is about like non-attachment, is about how like attachment and like I don't know, I kind of like attachment. I kind of think attachment is part of the human experience that is.
It is, and that's what makes it a successful cult. It's setting up that this is an impossible task, and I'm going to show you how to do it.
Yeah.
It's a good argument for how to live life, because the less invested you are in material things or relationships that I require to be happy. I mean, absolutely. If you change your thinking, it might be a little bit better for you. Yeah. In terms of like toxic ideals that we absorb about like what people should mean to us.
Right.
I think people find Buddhism less offensive because it does teach you to separate from those impulsive, emotional, whereas other religions actually exploit that and play that out in people. So I think that's what makes it less offensive to a lot of people than some other religions, is like trying to actually teach you how to be better and to separate yourself from that, rather than just using that instinct in people to control them.
It does seem like a life hack that a cult presents that actually is beneficial in general. It's just like CBT. It's like, remove yourself from this emotionally. Appreciate it for what it is. You have zero control over anything that happens to you ever. You can amass so much wealth that you think that you're going to be safe. Like all these, like Joel Osteen and all these other people, all these people that control industry, the Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates. Everyone thinks he's great because he donated so much to cancer research, only because he got cancer. Like he wouldn't have had this significant influence on cancer research in this country if it hadn't happened to him. Right. So show me somebody that gives away the majority of their wealth to something that does not personally affect them or their legacy.
Elton John.
He's a wonderful man. Dolly Parton.
You would join Elton John's cult?
I would join Elton John, Dolly Parton. I would join.
I'm already in it.
Yeah, like Dolly Parton, I am her cult. Come to me if you want to be in my cult, but I'm in David's cult. You don't have to join David's cult. This is our hierarchy of cults. Elton John cult over here with Carla. I'm in Carla's cult too.
I don't want one though. That's too much pressure.
Oh, well, I'll take over Carla's and I'll lead that one too.
I wouldn't have any members.
So I think to me, I have a different perspective than a lot of people do, because I'm just see all religions as cults and ways to control women and children and to exploit them for your benefit.
Mm-hmm.
And Buddhism is the one that you can mostly, like, you can't interpret it the most liberally, the most,
Right.
in a way that seems healthiest to me. But it's still,
They excluded women for a long time. I mean, as a,
there's this huge thing in the yoga community, because I've
Yeah.
been reading up on that and wanting to be, I don't want to interpret that exclusively through a whitewash sort of thing. I want
Right.
to understand what it means to the culture that developed it and all that stuff. But there are several significant, prominent yoga instructors that have wildly sexually abused people that were like training underneath them as students. And it's just, these are just systems
Yeah.
that exploit people. And I will say this, like, there are people within that who just want to help people. I had these amazing nuns that, like, showed people how to put condoms on bananas, and we ran a food pantry that served anybody in the county. And I had a really great church community growing up. My parents converted from, my grandmother was raised Baptist. My parents converted when they were setting up the Catholic mission because they had a friend that was a hippie, and they invited their friend to go to their Baptist church with them. And their pastor, preacher, whatever the fuck it was, turned that person away because they had long hair. So my parents, my father and his sister converted to Catholicism. My mom joined. She married my dad. So you see people that work within that system that are just good people that want to help people. It's basically social work, but with this spiritual tinge.
Right.
So they want to serve people, and they do, and they're wonderful, but they're still part of a machine that overall is evil.
Yeah.
They're all evil.
No, yeah, I think there's potential for good in any organization or whatever, but I think there's probably more potential for good when you're a little more independent.
It's just everybody points to Catholicism because of the big cover-up of pedophilic abuse by priests. And it's largely coded. It's always in the context of gay priests that molest little boys, but it's across the board, even when girls were being abused.
Yeah.
There's a systemic cover-up. But it's not just the Catholic Church.
No.
That is a fallacy, and it is an archetype that makes everybody else feel good about what's happening in their community.
Yeah.
Hasidic Judaism, Buddhism, Pentecostal, name any of them. And I could point to you stories that I personally have researched that do this.
And the public school system.
The public school
I think
system,
I
the
think
USA
Catholicism.
Gymnastics.
Yeah, exactly. I think anytime Boy Scouts, all that. Anytime you have an association with children, people who are predators are going to use that to exploit the situation. You know, if you just have that tendency in yourself, that's what you're going to gravitate toward. If you're a priest who likes children, or a tennis coach who likes children, or a Boy Scout leader who likes children, or a middle school teacher, it just exists across the board and all of that because people exploit that situation.
And women and children aren't valued. Their murders are excused, covered up, ignored by any excuse possible. Basically, any religion, they're all cults to me, and they all exploit and harm people. And it would be awesome to me if they just didn't fucking exist, and we could all just move forward based on scientific principles and stop doing all this shit to each other.
Dude, people treat science like a cult. People treat atheism like it's a religion. They're out there trying to convert others to atheism. I'm like, isn't it inherent that you wouldn't care, though?
So is anarchy like the sponsor of this episode?
Oh my goodness. No, mine is just people that don't fucking join cults. But
Yeah,
apparently,
yeah,
according
yeah.
to Carla, they're even not joining a cult is a cult.
That is a cult,
So we're
too,
fucked.
yeah,
We all have to
there's no
commit
way.
suicide right now. Take your
Oh,
hands off the
no.
wheel.
Anytime someone tries to get you to do something, no, don't do it. Do
the
anything
opposite.
anyone tells you to do.
No, but then they could be
But
using
I'm telling
reverse
you to do
psychology.
that.
Oh my
Oh
god.
my god.
Oh my
We're
God.
trapped in some kind of a loop here.
Inception.
Yeah.
Incession. Fuck. And now, now we've come full circle. Now we're
Yeah.
like in French existentialism. Nothing fucking matters.
Mm.
Everything we do doesn't matter what happens. Doesn't matter what choice we make. Is it all null and void because I'm so drunk?
Well, you were asking like how weak-willed do you have to be to join a cult or whatever, but I've always had that thought. I think we talked a little bit about here. I talked about having read a little bit of How to Win Friends and Influence People, and as I read it, I'm thinking like, wait a minute, is this trying to get me to become a cult leader? Like I don't want to be a
Dale
cult leader.
Carnegie's
Yeah,
classic. And it is. It's like, stop worrying about it. Stop analyzing it. There is no answer. You're an animal.
Right.
Do you want to control the other animals so your life is easier? That is
Yeah.
what that book is. And my answer was, no, I just want to be a pain in the ass.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I just kept being a pain in the ass.
I just want to kind of sit in the back of the room making fun of stuff. Like,
For the rest of my life.
yeah.
That would be great. We can make that happen, David.
Okay.
Make that dream come alive. And that's what Evie does. She wants to sit in the back of the room. She doesn't really take a really active. She doesn't buy any of Russell's shit. Yeah. She's just like, yes, I want to keep coming over here so I can follow Suzanne around. She, runs away to her dad's house and his girlfriend. But she never tells anybody, hey, see those fucking crazy hippies on the TV? Well, I hung out with them all summer. And I fucked that one. I'm in love with her.
But the guy, like the people that she talks to, like they kind of know, right? That's how, because he recognizes her. Like that's kind of why the story kicks off. But I don't remember how he knew.
That's an obscure reference. Apparently, most people don't recognize her.
He said his dad told him.
His dad told him.
I guess she did tell like some friends in her life.
She
Yeah,
had
because his dad had told him,
dated.
and he's like, "Hey, weren't you in that crazy coat?"
Apparently, there's one image of her in like one of the books, but she's not credited by name.
Yeah.
And that sent me on a deep dive on the internet. There are websites that are devoted to sightings of the Manson girls in everyday life now, in their rehabilitated life. Some of them are still devotees, and some of them were like, I don't want to talk about that, and some of them renounce it completely. The pictures that they publish, because they'll be like, oh, here's all these people, and I looked everyone up. I was like, ooh, who's
Wow.
this? I'm going to pick my favorite one out. It's like, but they're pictures of them like at their children's weddings that people, they copied and sent them anonymously to publish on these websites.
There were so many of them too. It's like everyone knows the infamous Manson girls who were involved in the murders, but there were actually so many people in the family, like around 100, off and on, in and out.
So I found myself going through all of the pictures and just getting really depressed at how creepy it was. And I was just like, Jesus Christ, these women look like people that you walk past in the grocery store in Clay County. You'd never know. We have talked about this before, Carla. It's just like whether you're a Manson girl that's tangentially related, or you're one of the Manson girls, or you're Manson himself. I think that a lot of people want to divorce themselves from the possibilities of that. And it's so far away and so wacky, but all of it is just a jump to the left.
It's true. It's true. No one ever wants to believe it. Like, we talked, did BTK's wife know? Everyone's like, she had to. I'm like, I don't know.
No?
He killed one person a year. You could hide that from somebody.
He could do it.
I think it's a defense mechanism in people to want to think, that could never happen to me. That could never be me. It's reinforcement for them to feel that way rather than actually looking at how relatable it is.
The whole, you have to be a monster. If you're a monster, you're not a person. I'm a person. So I don't have to worry about this.
Yeah, like Charles Manson had a shitty life. He had a terrible dad who was a con artist and just moved around all the time.
Very unstable childhood.
Violence. And all of them are like that. And like you're saying, people say monster instead of like, oh, this is how a person can turn out under these circumstances.
David, we want to thank you very much for joining us again for this episode.
Thank you for having me for this episode.
For your excellent selection.
Oh, thanks.
I'm glad I read it. I was like, really? And I think you got the reaction that you were like, God damn it. You're like, is that okay? Once again, if you out there, our listeners, have suggestions or want to join us for an episode, hit us up on Instagram, hit us up on our Gmail. Let us know what books you would like to read, or that you maybe just want us to read and you are too shy to join us for. Thanks again. This is Indifferently Depraved Book Club. I'm Penny Maple.
David Smith.
Bye, y'all.
And now it's time